Thank you very much. My name is Aditya Gopalan, and this is joint work with my student Debangshu Banerjee at the Indian Institute of Science, where this is an ongoing project towards trying to understand really foundations of the current sort of RLHF-based alignment process, and trying to really study how robust or actually not robust it is, which is what I'm going to talk about today. So just to sort of set the context for the problem, here's a very quick overview of sort of the most popular sort of alignment method, which is called reward model-based alignment. So the first step of this process is training what is called a reward model, where you basically collect a lot of questions or prompts, and you sort of collect 2 answers for each prompt, and then you go and ask a human, or maybe in general a crowd of humans whom you really want to quote-unquote align to, which ones they prefer. So you collect lots of such data, and then you feed it into what is called a reward model training pipeline, which is really a fancy way of saying train a neural network, basically score a given piece of text, which could be like a question and an answer, and just output a numerical reward. Okay, so this is supposed to sort of capture the scoring mechanism of how a human perceives a response to a prompt. Yeah. Next slide, please. Yeah, so how do you use this reward model to actually align, let's say, a language model? You take the base pre-trained model, and then you basically stick its answer into a reward model that you've already trained. And then you sort of try to fiddle around with the weights of the LLM so that you actually slightly improve the reward score than what you had before. Okay, and then when you do that, you sort of declare that you've achieved some kind of alignment. Okay, next slide, please. So this is what we were actually interested in trying to do and quantify. We did the following experiment. We trained not one reward model on a standard preference data set, but actually an ensemble of like 10 reward models. We trained them completely independently. And we basically passed sort of a benign looking piece of question and answer, which relates here to Superman or whatnot. And yeah, next slide, please. So what we saw was actually, in some sense, surprising, but in another sense not. We actually saw a fair amount of disagreement between the reward scores of each of these models. They're all the same reward model, just being trained, initialized, and trained independently and separately. Okay, so this is not an anomaly. You can actually play around with this on a very large test set of examples. Next slide, please. This is a real problem. There is often a lot of variance in on a sort of a per string basis, on a per prompt basis, across sort of reward models that have been independently trained. Okay. Next slide. Now one can actually speculate and come up with a bunch of natural reasons why this happens. So you can question the reward modeling process right from the basics. I'm not sure humans really sort of have a preference model in their heads, which is what is used in reward model training. Next slide, please. Yeah, so the other thing has to do with the fact that the training of the so-called reward model itself is a stochastic sort of a dynamical process. It can lead into sort of non-convex landscapes and result in fairly varying reward models, right? And to add to all of this, there is the paucity of these binary preference data that is usually collected in relation to the scale of these reward models. So all of these are a problem, and one could sort of imagine the downstream consequences of just taking a reward model that someone trained or you trained and just taking it and sort of optimizing, quote unquote, for alignment here, okay, for the reward. Next slide, please. So our prescription about how to deal with these potentially inaccurate reward models, or one such reward model, is to actually be aware and do some extra work to quantify the uncertainty that the reward model has with respect to, let's say, a given input or a generic input. This can be done by statistical methods like ensembling, perhaps bootstrapping, and so on. And once you have some idea, some decent idea of the uncertainty of a reward model, the way you can use that is to basically encode the constraint that the LLM should not move far enough in directions that the reward model is not really feeling confident about. Okay, so this is sort of a recipe that sort of we propose. Next slide, please. You can sort of reason. I'll skip over these slides. Can you please advance? You can reason about this in terms of like a multi-arm bandit problem where there's a lot of uncertainty in some arms and very little in some other arms, and there is a certain robust or conservative solution that usually yields better and less risky rewards than what you would do when you just blindly follow the mean rewards. Next slide, please. Yeah, next slide, please. Yeah, so just to sort of ignore all the math, we have a simple prescription of sort of this so-called variance-aware RLHF, which, next slide please, which you can actually show is equivalent to just being conservative in the sense of the usual RLHF problem and maximizing a lower bound on the rewards. So you can go ahead. Maybe a couple of slides. Yeah, maybe just skip to the end. Okay, thanks. So I'll just put some future directions here. Thank you.